Hello, welcome to another edition of Prove All Things. Want to thank everybody who's joining us today, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, or watching in the CGI Digital Network app, whether that's on your phone, tablet, or on your Roku or Apple streaming device. We're glad to have you joining us here live. And to all others, we welcome you as well. I'm joined from California with co-host Mike James. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, Jeff, doing well. Good to see you there in Georgia. How are things?
Things are well. Got a sick kid today. He's got both the flu and strep throat. So there's
Wow.
really a lot of illness going around with folks, and so it's it comes and goes here quite a bit. But he's the only one who has it so far. So just pray that stays that way.
Yeah, that's tough. Double whammy there with your child, and
Mhm.
my daughter's on break right now for about 3 weeks, so we're gonna have to find some things to do with her over the next 3 weeks here. But we've got temperatures in the 50s again today, high in the 50s,
Mm.
getting up into the 60s and 70s later this week. So it's starting to get back to normal California weather here in the winter.
Is that the California early spring that's
Yeah,
coming? I guess
yeah, it's real early here
early. All
for
right.
sure.
All right, we're joined today, and we'll go ahead and get into this today. We are let everybody know that this is pre-recorded, so we usually ask for your comments. Go ahead and send us your comments. You can send comments to our email address, and we'll definitely look at those in the future show. You can send it to mhjames6043 at yahoo.com. Send your questions or comments, or send your questions or comments to Jeff at cgi.org. Either one of those, you can send us those things, and we'll address them in the future. This is again pre-recorded because I think at this point that this is playing, I should be at the Winter Family Weekend, bar any illnesses that are happening here. But that is the plan so far. So, but we are joined today from, I guess, a pretty cold place, at least what I was told earlier. We were joined by one of our regulars here, Alan Wolfkill, the regular who has, I think, the coolest name of any of our guests. So, how you
Hi
doing, Alan?
guys. Yeah, it's
Hey,
pretty
Alan.
cold, but it wasn't as cold as the night that I flew in. I was telling Mike a few days ago over the phone that when the this little puddle jumper airplane landed in Deer Lake, Newfoundland, yeah, you
Hmm.
can hear the ice cracking with on the salt because it was so slick. Anyway, it was interesting, but when you get off, they said you better be careful if you don't know how to use ice skates. You know, anyway, that was the
Wow.
advice. Be prepared to fall.
Yeah, you're
So
about an hour and a half earlier than Jeff right now on the East Coast, right?
Hmm.
yeah,
Newfoundland's way out there in the east. Yeah.
and that half hour just throws me off. And I'm
Yeah.
not used to. I've been here a week so far. I have four more weeks, I think,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And
Newfoundland's the
yeah,
only place in the
it's an
world.
adjustment.
It's the only place in the world where they decided to do a half hour, I guess, because
Yeah,
it wasn't quite enough to say an hour, so they're like, half hour is fine, I guess.
right.
So I guess so an hour and a half ahead of us.
Yeah.
So how's the weather there today?
Today is pretty nice. I think it's equivalent to 32 Fahrenheit, 35-ish at the most.
Okay.
So it's warmed up since I got here, and I think there's a storm coming from the south which is supposed to be dropping quite a bit of precipitation. So I guess that's the storm front that was hitting the south with the tornadoes and stuff that's supposed to be
Oh
moving up this
yeah.
direction.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah. That should be, later in the week. Or for people who are watching this pre-recorded, this may have already happened, and you're like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, so,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
so this probably already happened to a lot of folks out there who are watching today. So what brings you to Newfoundland?
My wife, you can see our wedding picture right here.
Oh,
That's me and
all right,
Jane right there.
all right.
And this is Lake Tahoe, and this building here is where we kept the feast with Guardian Ministries.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So this was the eve of the beginning of the first night of the feast, Yeah.
Okay.
And I,
So you got married at the feast? Is that
I
correct?
certainly did. So I'm a newlywed.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
To,
Yeah.
to the
October
married
10th.
life.
Yeah,
That's
don't forget
wonderful.
that date. Don't forget that date, Alan.
Oh, I will. I bet. October what?
Yeah. You need to know that date at
Oh, I
all
know.
times throughout the entire year. Know what that date is. Don't ever
Oh, I
miss
bet. But that's my lovely wife right there, Jane, in that image that you just showed, and myself, and looking so bashful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I know we've had you on in the past. You've talked about Native American religion, different things relating to Native Americans because you have some of that ancestry. But I
Yes.
think we're gonna get back to that in the future. But we're gonna switch gears today with you, Alan, and get into another area that you're very knowledgeable in, and that is alcohol and drug counseling, because you've had years of experience in that field. And I want to delve into that today. So could you just give folks a little bit of background as to what you've done in that field, alcohol and drug counseling? And then I think Jeff may have some questions for you. I got some questions for you that'll lead us into this conversation.
Okay,
Yes,
wonderful.
absolutely. But I want to expand on the alcohol and drug, and let's call it substance abuse, because it could be anything from food to anything that you ingest or participate in that is an uncontrolled, out of your ability to get a grip on or seize whatever it is that you're doing. So it's broader than just drugs and alcohol. But if you want me to focus on the chemical dependency portion of it, that's fine. But remember,
no, we can expand. We can expand into that. I think you're talking about gambling, pornography, anything that grabs you and gets
every
you
bit of that.
There.
Yeah. Because it all comes from the same area, which is the limbic system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess this would probably be definitely of interest to our viewers, because again, once we are baptized and we receive God's Spirit, a lot of us have a lot of overcoming to do, and probably some more than others. And again, you can be baptized and still be addicted to drugs, alcohol, tobacco, pornography, whatever. Those are things that you could be addicted to, and that you're struggling with. And in God's church, we have the Holy Spirit, we have Christ to help us. But there are ways that we can, that I guess you're going to share with us that can really focus that.
Well, I will agree with you on that. But there's another thing to consider. You could come into your conversion, if you're converting. For those of you who are not like raised into the church, but you could, let's say in your conversion, you don't have any issues of substance abuse disorder. You can easily have something develop as far as substance abuse, and that depends on you, your characteristics, and life circumstances. Like I met a woman.
Well, in the Church of God, we teach it's okay to drink alcohol. And so like I never had alcohol before I came into the church, because I didn't, like, my family didn't do alcohol. We weren't about alcohol. And then, I drank it and I like it. Okay. It's all right. It's nothing like that. But somebody who maybe never had alcohol, they may like it a lot.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen in the church, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So you're correct in that. But you said you had an example of a woman.
Yes. There was a woman that I believe she was about, she was in her 80s, and she was an avid church going lady, and she was going to a methadone clinic. I don't know if you guys know what methadone is. Do you guys know what methadone is?
Kind of a substitute for heroin. I mean,
exactly. So
right. Yes.
And it is a substitute, because during one of our past great wars, there was an opium shortage. So a substitute was devised. So anyway, the government has offices or clinics that you can go into, and it's called harm reduction, or it's a form of harm reduction. So they'd rather have you go into a clinic and you get government given prescribed methadone so that you don't have to go do illegal behavior in order to get your fix. Because if you are addicted to opiates, and whether you want to or not, you are going to end up with a chemical dependency to it and have withdrawals. If you, let's say, get on a Vicodin or something like that, for people break their hips or their backs or injuries, long-term use, all of a sudden against your will, and you can't do anything about it because the chemical is far more powerful than your will, you are now an addict of opiates.
You know what?
So
this hit my head. I've done put it past me, but it was just a couple years ago in 2020 where a doctor prescribed me a certain controlled substance, and they gave me and they gave it to me, and it wasn't really a doctor. It was one of the doctors, nurses that can prescribe. So they gave it to me. I didn't really have good instructions about taking it, and so I took one, and then pretty soon it's like it got me all shaky, and the next day I needed another one. And then pretty soon I was like, well, I think I'll take it a couple of times a day because that kind of gets rid of the shakiness and kind of calms me down. I'm back. And pretty soon I was like addicted to this stuff because if I didn't take it, I was squirming around.
Yeah.
I was just like, just didn't know what to do until I took this medicine. And so I realized pretty quickly, I'm like, I can't go on with this thing. So I called the hotline. There's like a hotline that our insurance offers, and said, hey, I've stopped taking this because I don't want to take this anymore because it's driving me nuts. And the guy's like, well, you probably shouldn't do that because if you go cold turkey on this thing, you could have a seizure and die. I was like, what? I was like, I did not know how dangerous this thing it was I had. So I went back and I took.
What was the pill? Do you remember what it was?
It was a I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was one that it's just like one of the ones that affects your mind a little bit.
Okay.
And it was only supposed to be for temporary, but I guess they didn't give me no way out of this medicine because once it hits you, like you're like stuck to this thing. But then I did go to the doctor and they told me, here's how you wean yourself off of this. And then they gave me something else to take its place for a little bit. So that wasn't addictive, so that I would go on that for a while. And then after I went off that, then the addiction is no longer there. So you know what? I understand that somebody with God's Holy Spirit can take something and get addicted, and it's awful. It's awful to have that. But and again, I was lucky that I was able to figure it out. Maybe some folks are not as lucky.
Yeah,
that is exactly how it ends up. Yeah.
A great point you just made, Jeff, is we're still physical.
Yeah.
We're flesh and blood. We got the Spirit of God in us, but it's still a battle, just like Scripture says. Alan, I think you would agree.
Oh, without a doubt, absolutely. I had another example when you brought up like people drinking who are within the church. I remember the first time that I attended the feast back in '91. There was a man who he lined up, I think like 12 shot glasses, and this was like when you get invited to someone's place to do like a potluck. So there was like 30 some odd people from the feast at this one condo, and this guy has all of these shots lined up, and he's just doing one after another until he got to the end. And he made a big deal about it. And I turned to some of the people that can you do that? I mean, yeah, he's doing it. Actually, I think it was Gary Wanlin, right? I turned to Gary and I said, hey, that guy's pounding shots. He says, well, for him, it's the feast of booze. So I kind of giggled, but not because it was funny, but I didn't expect that. And then come to find out that the guy had a substance abuse issue. Come to find out later, he was relapsing from doing a work from a 12-step program and stuff like that. So,
yeah, I'll tell you guys real quick. One of my early friends in the church back in Maryland, he's since died. He was an alcoholic and he was fighting it, and for years he was free of it. But he got back into it, and it's eventually what killed him in an automobile accident. So, this problem is in the church. no doubt about it. And that's why we're talking about it, because there are folks in the church who are still suffering, and we want to find some ways to overcome this.
Well, let me say this. I'll speak for myself. I may have or may not have been a type of person who could hold liquor. All right. When I first started attending and becoming aware of Bible studies and diving into the scripture and learning what I should and shouldn't be doing to edify the Holy Spirit within myself, I really didn't care about alcohol one bit. You know, if someone wanted to do a toast, I was like, I'll do it with a cider or something. But it developed after a life-changing event took place, and then I just went downhill. And what I did was I went from not giving a you-know-what about booze to using it as my means of coping, which was like a 5-year period of despair, because I just completely pulled away from anything that was that had been edifying, and I had to learn that a surrender to my behavior to return to the Holy Spirit was an important thing. And we talk about paradoxical situations. You have to surrender to win. You know, in order to realize that you have a problem, you have to give up in order to start getting back the health that you may have before, and then maybe become better than what you were, so that you realize that you have a disposition that if you start using something, that it's going to attach itself to you emotionally, not just chemically. Mm-hmm. So there is the emotional addiction as well. That's what I'm bringing up. And I was exceptionally emotionally addicted to booze, without a doubt. So from finding this information out 22 plus years ago, I just don't drink. I don't need it. The only time I will have any alcohol is Passover. Right. And people, and I do attend 12-step meetings, and people say, oh, well, then that means once a year you relapse. I said, well, that's fine. Once a year I start fresh. Right. Yeah. Right. So no big deal, because the blood of Christ in that moment is far more important than how much time I have, you know?
Right.
But I do speak from experience.
Yeah. I've heard some people say, Alan, that until they reach their lowest point, they don't start to climb back out. That, we want to help people. We want to get them off of drugs, off of alcohol. But sometimes it takes reaching your lowest point before you have that awareness that begins the process of coming out of it.
Yes.
What do you think about that? And are there other ways to deal with someone who maybe hasn't fallen all the way yet?
I have another some people, awesome example for you.
Okay.
So there are those who I'll call knuckleheads. They're just foolish, and they don't get it until they are pounded in their head with like a mallet to get it. And then only then do they get it. They have to suffer their extreme consequences of their behavior. I might maybe fit in that category. Now, learning later and then getting educated on this stuff, because the first thing I wanted to do once I was beginning to get my help, I came across a few counselors that were fantastic, and I said, I want to do what they're doing. What do I got to do to become what you are? I followed their instructions, and that's what led me on the path where I'm at now. So I ended up in a facility, and we had high-end clientele, people who primarily paid with cash. So I had, put it this way, I had a guy who was 1/3 the power of this global company, right? And I don't want to say it was for his anonymity, but anyhow, now he got with me, and I was assigned with him by the director of the facility, the doctor, and said, I want you to work with this man because he's not going to be here very long, and I believe that you are capable of conveying to him that he doesn't need to hit a rock bottom, and we trust here that you can speak to this guy. Okay, so I kind of had an idea of what my approach was going to be. I get to talking with my client. Now, typically when I work with clients, I do an assessment, and I'll bring a booklet and a pen, and I'll give them a spiel about journaling and what I'm going to expect from them on a weekly basis until I meet again with them one-on-one.
Hey, Alan, just for people out there who may not understand the concept of journaling, can you explain that a little, why that's used in counseling sometimes?
Yeah, I'll get to that. I'm going to address that in this here, so it'll be included. Okay. So I get with them, and like, for example, I gave this client that I'm referencing about. I said, you have clients like I said, and I pointed over my shoulder, like this guy over here, LinkedIn, and said, the past 8 weeks that he's been working with me, he said he could read a chapter a week. I met with him the week following. He didn't read one chapter. I asked him, how much did he read? He goes, I didn't read any. I said, can you read a paragraph a week? He says, yeah, I could read a paragraph a week. The following week, week 3, did you read a paragraph this week? No, I didn't read a paragraph. How much did you read? I didn't read anything. I said, can you read a sentence a week? Yeah, I could read one sentence a week. Week 4, did you read a sentence this week? No, I didn't read a sentence. I said, okay, look. This young man behind me, he has been in this facility 4 times already. At $1,600 a day, someone's paying cash for him to be here. Okay? I said, now you, on the other hand, you understand the concept of inventory. I said, you are 1/3 of a global corporation that inventory is your name. You guys have ships, shipping containers, trucks, yards where trains come in there and pull merchandise in and out from different places around the world, and it goes all over the place. You understand about inventory. I said, you know what these guys do when they get to their 4th step, which is a spiritual step, coming to writing down, journaling your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and your memories, and what part you played in this, not what anyone else did. You give 100% of whatever it is that you were involved in with your direct involvement with your substance abuse disorder. They hit that like it's a wall, like it's the sound barrier. I told them, I said, these guys, that were like Chuck Yeager. This guy was attempting to hit the sound barrier, and they thought that it was an invisible wall up there that some air gods would just destroy their airplanes. All they did was tweak the wing a little bit, and guess what? Now they're on Mach 1, Mach 2. I go, are you following what I'm getting at, sir? He says, yeah, I understand. I said, so you know what inventory is? And I gave one more example. I said, I'm watching American Chopper and Mr. Tuttle. He goes into this giant warehouse and he sees A, B, C, D, all the way down the alphabet on one side. And then on the floor, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, on up to 100 on the floor. And the man that he's building a motorcycle for is showing him this giant, beautiful warehouse. I said, you look how well organized this warehouse is when you compartmentalize your inventory. I said, if I want something A19, I know that I'm within 10 feet of anything that I need. I'm right there. Are you better understanding what it is that I'm conveying to you about doing your homework? I said, so do you need to find out that you hit rock bottom to know that you can hit rock bottom? Do you have to hit rock bottom to know that you can? Look at all these people around here. Use them as an example. Mm-hmm. I mean, am I going to meet you again? Or are you going to go to another facility and try it there? Or are you going to do it now? And look, this is our initial visit. And I want to get a jump on this with you. I believe that you have the ability to understand what I'm conveying to you. Am I making myself clear. He says, absolutely. This man was stellar in what he was doing. He knew exactly what I was talking about. He was far brilliant than I'll ever think about being, being, 1/3 executive of this giant, literally a giant global corporation. And he is my client. So he understood what I meant. I said, you don't need to go through hell to know that it exists. You might. If you don't believe anything that I'm saying, you don't trust anything that you give yourself to, but it is a surrender to something that you trust that will help you. Anyway, he ended up getting picked up a month later by his wife, and his wife thanked me and the facility. And this guy loved me. He wanted to fly me out in Learjets, to like Singapore, to this event, and out to Dubai for another. But because of HIPAA, we don't have contact with clients. I would have loved to indulge in that, because then that would have been jumping in on some of my addiction, because I like to travel, So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm taking leave of absence and going with this guy here to Mumbai or something, right? Yeah. But I was there to help him and help others as well, not just him. So
right.
Now, closing on specifically what you asked me, Mike, journaling is important. I'll put it this way: journaling is important to me for at least this reason, that if you can write down what's inside of you, you're in torment, or you're sorrowful, you're going through some type of emotional event that maybe you're good with it or you're not good with it. Write down at the speed of your thoughts. Whether you can read what you're writing or not later is beside the point. Keep up with the speed of thought and write down what's going on with you. And if you could do this on a daily and then come back to it like a week or two later, you can let's say this is something you just began and you're in a funk of whatever kind, and whatever the source of this funk is. Let's say you get about a month out from it and you go back and look at what you wrote. If you can read your own writing, maybe you can. Maybe you scribbled it out just to get it out. I remember I wrote stuff in the dark with the light from outside the window shining through. I couldn't see the paper, but you can tell that I'd made an attempt, and there were water stains on the paper because of my tears. I just got it out. And so if a person can come from a deeper, meaningful place within themselves and be aware of it, learn to be aware of it, and they can not just say journaling, but like logging, like a captain's log. Where was I at this moment when I was going through this? What was going on around me? Maybe you can look at a trigger. Maybe you can look at something that disturbed your thoughts or memory. So right. One thing leads to another.
What I'm getting, Alan, is what you're saying is one of the strengths of this is it's not only cathartic where you're getting stuff out, you're not just holding it in, but also it will help you remember what your thoughts were in those moments when you may have been messing up. Like, what was I thinking? Why was I doing this? Again, you're getting that down to kind of go back like reviewing the film in a football game. And
absolutely. Perfect. Perfect. Well put.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Got it.
Yeah. So you have some form of record of what was going on. You might not be able to make sense of it, but you can still go over it. And maybe if you're working with a counselor or a therapist or a coach or someone like you within the church, you have something to go by. And for me, I wouldn't necessarily read. Actually, no, I wouldn't read the entries that clients would do for me. I said I would just pick. Let's say Wednesday. Let's say Wednesday during the week, I noticed that something was up with them. I noticed or I'd indicated something, while I'm around the milieu that, that so-and-so was acting or behaving or looked a certain way. I go, hey, what was going on with you on Wednesday? Can you read me Wednesday's entry? It's something to go by. You go, oh, that's interesting. Do you hear what you wrote? Yeah, I mean, it didn't dawn on me that that's what I said. That's exactly what was going on with me. And they answer their own questions. And if they give themselves enough time, people can actually get themselves out of predicaments with supervision. They can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jeff, Alan actually used this on me.
Okay.
So, he's gotten to know me a little bit over the last year. So I was at church a couple of weeks and I seemed like distant, and it wasn't something that I was feeling. It was just there for me, but he picked up on it and asked me a question. And then we started conversing about it. And I kind of saw, oh, wow, yeah, that's some stuff's going on at home right now. And I'm kind of projecting that out when I'm in public here. And so he helped me realize that. So Alan, I think that's a great point to make about observing our friends, our family members, people at church, and noticing some slight differences and just asking a question, right? We can help people.
I mean, is it? I guess it's probably a good thing to do if I mean, what are some things we can look for to see if someone maybe has an addiction or they're suffering from something? Is there signs? A tough one. Because again, when I had the thing I had a couple of years ago, I didn't realize it until it was like later on, and then nobody around me kind of realized it. They just thought I was being a jerk. When I was because again the medicine, the stuff I was taking made me be a jerk at sometimes because of because there was a point where I started taking it twice a day because I asked the doctor, and my wife, I was like, I need you to go get this for me I'm feeling so horrible or whatever. And she brings it home. I don't say thank you or nothing. I grab it and I open it up. I go take it and go away. And this because I needed to settle down because of how I guess the withdrawal was feeling, because it really makes you awful with that kind of thing. And again, it's not who I am; it's just what the chemicals were causing me to behave like and stuff. So I didn't realize it until I was like, oh my goodness, I'm addicted to something. But how do we help people who don't know that?
Well, first of all, it was good that you noticed that and you became self-aware on that, which is fantastic. Because if you are capable of doing that and you get a grip. I mean, like literally, you get a grip, like a channel lock grip. Oh, okay, this is it. No further with this, and from here forward, it's about correcting whatever the issue is. But now, answering your question, it's difficult. Now, here's the thing: what if you know the people, which is an important thing within the body of Christ, I have an opinion that we ought to get to know one another like brothers and sisters, family, right? So if you are with your family, you can tell when something's up with somebody. You can just tell that their demeanor is different. Maybe they're edgy, or maybe they're over nice about something, and something is a compensation for either something that's added or removed. There's always a compensation. So you're going to know, I put it like this, like when I'm with someone, let's say I'm on the campus or in the milieu with a client, and then I'm making my rounds and just checking out people, and I'll sit down nonchalantly. I'm just there and listening to the conversation, and then you can get a feel for what's going on. Maybe you hear a different tone from someone that you have been hearing, but also include this not just with what I'm describing within a facility, but at home. You be aware, be receptive to a change, someone's tone. Maybe their pitch is different, and they're putting a little bit more emphasis on on certain words, you know, like a little accents here or there, which is like, hey, that sounds different. And for me, as a musician, I'll say, someone changed the music. Like, what do you mean? I go, it's something different because it's not what I heard yesterday, you know. And now it's difficult unless you gain a skill of understanding minute changes and alterations in people's characteristics and behavior. You can see it. If you pay attention to people, I pay attention to people. I look at eyes, I look at body language. This is something I do. And if I notice a slight difference, I'll think about it. If I see it a few times, I'll notice something within me to pay attention. Now they're on my radar, right? And I don't necessarily do it intentionally. No, well, I definitely do it intentionally if I'm on the clock. But if it's just like friends and family or you know, people at church or something like that, hey, I've gone to elders and go, hey, are you okay? You know, Mike isn't the only one. You know, over at the Balboa Church, you know, the West Coast Church guy, I went with one of the elders, and I noticed that he was different than what I noticed him being. And I asked him, and this is public information because we want prayers for the topic, but he had just found out that his wife, you know, her cancer hadn't gone away yet, and it was disturbing him. But he's a really happy person. He's a good man, but you can't muscle through all this stuff. So it comes out somewhere, and I noticed it in my conversation with him. And he says, "Actually, no, I'm not okay." I go, "Well, I don't need to know what it is, but I mean, would you like to have some prayer over this? I can pray with you. Am I okay with praying with you?" I said, "Yeah, sure. I'd love for you to pray with me." We did that and did it on the down low. Nobody knew what we were doing, and that was that. And he thanked me. But it's just minute things. Now, with an addict, if it's a child or a loved one, well, I've been around so far. I lost count. It's safe to say thousands of substance abuse people that you know, if they try to hide that they're on something, no, they can't. You can't get it over on me, you know. So I had one client that when it was pill time, he would always try and distract me so that he can cheek his medication. And what he would do, he would go up to his house and take a safety pin and burn it and inhale it. He would get high from doing that, right? It had a different effect than what it was supposed to do.
That's pretty desperate, man.
Right? Wow. Well, he was desperate, and a lot of these people are very desperate. And so I caught into him doing that with others. But he admitted, and I believe him, that he never did that while I was doing it, but he always did it when others were dispensing medication. And by the way, I never cared for dispensing the medication because it was a responsibility that if somebody did cheat their meds and give it to someone else, you know, and just stuff like that, you know, all this shenanigans goes on inside of these facilities. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, that kid, he did end up dying, the one I just mentioned, and really sad. He, you know, some people don't get it. This particular young man was 35 years old, had 4 children. And you might have heard me mention it before when we were talking about Native stuff, but when he turned 18, had, I think it was $18 million, something like that, a huge amount of money put into his account. He was taken into the boardroom at the tribe with people basically telling him, hey, what house you want? What kind of house you want built? He had an architect. We'll build you any house that you want on this space. And after that, he was getting like $50,000 cash every month on top of whatever the millions they gave him. It was a giant amount. But no matter how many Lexus he went through, he would get a Lexus and crash it, buy another one. He didn't care about losing it to repo men. His 4 kids were not enough for him to get clean and sober. He was through his 3rd wife. He was on his 4th wife when I met him. And after he had left the facility and I had left the facility and some years have passed, HIPAA didn't apply, and I began to my attempt to help him out, but he just could not stop doing a plethora of drugs, including going to the casino and blowing all of his money. He would say, "Alan, you ever try to blow $50,000? No." He goes, "Yeah, I have all this money. All I want to do is just blow it, but I can't." I said, "Well, maybe you're not smart enough to know how to blow $50,000, because I know how I can't. I never had it, but I can figure out a way to, like maybe anyway." But this guy was just like an ongoing issue with himself, with his friends and his family, and he ended up dying as a result of it.
Hey, when you speak of that, like when you develop some friendships with people like this, Alan, how do you keep that space so you don't like fall into their hole, in the sense of caring so much that you got to make that space in between, right? That you can care for somebody too much at times, that it's going to start to hurt you. How do you do that? How do you stop that?
Well, you have to keep in mind of what's called transference and countertransference.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
You don't want a person's issues to become yours, and then you identify with them to the point to where you're like, yeah, I know, I was there, I went through that too, and then you guys end up become buddies over your life stories, and then sometimes clients and counselors end up taking off and going and getting higher drunk or whatever. If they're male and female, they can go and have sex. It's horrible. So that's why there's HIPAA, things like that, and to protect the client. But a lot of people in the field go straight into a counseling role without any school training, and they become a tech at first. Maybe they're just taking clients to meetings and doing house checks and appointment errands and things like that. And then they think that because they're in their program, their own personal program of a 12-step program or whatever that they're doing, they can be like what's called a sponsor to this client. But the roles are different. So what these people end up doing is helping the client in a way that they need help themselves. So there's a plethora of things that could go wrong if that is your approach to helping people who are substance abuse sufferers. Myself, I did all of my schooling. I got credentialed. I went to school. I got credentialed with the state. I did my internship with the Salvation Army. I got 1,600 hours at the Salvation Army. I didn't need but 800, but I got 1,600 hours at the Salvation Army because I wanted the training. And I took on the most clients that anyone there had at the time. I think I had like 32 clients. And so I was seeing like 6 clients a day on my caseload, and we worked. And that whole thing was volunteer. And when I go through to the board meetings, they thought I was on the soft side. I get out to Malibu, they're telling me that I'm a hard end, But I liked working with the Salvation Army people because their technique was, if you don't want this, the street is right there. Make room for someone who needs this facility.
Okay. So I have a question. Yeah. You mentioned Salvation Army, so I'm just wondering how this is applicable to us, to people watching, and for us in our local churches. Does the Salvation Army provide that in different communities if somebody has a abuse problem?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so that's a place that we can like refer somebody to or take them to,
without a doubt. Now let me tell you, I didn't know this until I got affiliated with doing my internship. 85% of the total annual income, donations or their boutique sales, 85% of that total amount of money goes back to keeping doors open so that men and women can get free substance abuse counseling.
So
they
you
have
mean when you drop money in the barrel for the Salvation Army, 85% of that is going into these types of programs for these
yes.
people?
Okay. It's an inpatient. Some of the facilities are geared for those who need medication for psychological disorders, and also they also have facilities for women, battered women, or also women with substance abuse that have children and have no place to put them. So they have daycare there. So they really do a lot. They actually do a heck of a lot, and they it's mind-boggling. And they actually are considered also a local chapel that on Sundays you go and participate. But all these guys that go there, like judges, if they hear that one of the people in the courtroom that they is maybe potentially going to have to do time if they don't do this program or any other program, but if they're in the Salvation Army, because it's strict, 6 months or nothing, and you work like you see all those guys. You go there for the distribution center, and they're dropping all of those guys are on a certain level of care. There's the first month up to 6 months.
I didn't know that.
Every single one of those guys, including the drivers that wear the shirt.
Okay.
He's in the 1-year program.
So what about the people collecting the money outside of the grocery stores and stuff? Are they
volunteers? Those guys are volunteers. Okay. They're probably what they call Christian soldiers, because they structure their church like they have sergeants, then they have lieutenants up to captains. Okay. So where I was, it was Captain Young, who was in charge of that place, and it's his ministry, and I think he ended up being sent to Alaska or something like that after I left. So they have a rotation of different people, but the whole thing is about bringing men and women to Christ as they understand it, and getting them clean and sober. So I'm totally for the Salvation Army.
Okay.
I didn't know all of that. I knew they were a help group for no doubt, but I didn't know it was so heavily involved with drugs, alcohol, battered women, that type of thing. Because
they're a fantastic service.
No, they are. We've provided items to them over the years, and been to their facilities and some of their resale stores also, so where you can get very good deals.
So when people ask me, hey, what should I do with this stuff? I said, take it to the Salvation Army, because that money goes into helping others, as opposed to like Goodwill is profit for nonprofit for profit. I mean, they don't do much for the community.
So I know a lot of nonprofits that are really heavy on their salaries and to the executives and stuff. So that's kind of like the nonprofit for profit, where a lot of the workers are making a lot of money off of it and not doing so much. Yeah, but Salvation Army, you can attest that they're putting that money right back into helping people. So that's
absolutely. Well, I'll give you an example. Okay, I had one good friend of mine that I became friends with while working there and doing my internship. He was the only hired counselor other than the director of the facility, and he disclosed to me that he was only making like $12 an hour. I go, wow, only $12 an hour? He says, yes, but my car note is covered, my automobile insurance is covered, so I can get to and from work, and I can take clients. I have accessibility to any of the vehicles here where we take clients to meetings and other outings. They have housing and full medical, dental, and eyeglass for their employees. Now, they don't have a whole bunch of employees, but they have a good program for taking care of people. So that $12 an hour was like, whatever extra. I mean, that's a lot of side cash if you think about it. When everything else is pretty much taken care of, that's a good turn. That's a good trade of services.
Especially if you got your housing taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but they're not living rich. They're living just
Yeah.
taking care of things and really being
just
helpful
comfortable,
there.
within their means,
Right.
Yeah.
But they do provide a service that is stellar. Actually, I would, wherever I end up, I would love to be able to continue volunteering because they actually need it, and I enjoy being of service in those regards.
Gotcha. So maybe we got about 7 minutes left here, Alan. Is there anything you want to address that we haven't discussed thus far you feel is important on this topic?
Well, one thing that I wanted to bring up that we didn't touch on yet, I think we almost got there, but we didn't. I want us to consider, that, and I think I hinted it with my personal experience. Like I didn't have any issues with alcoholism until after I was in the body of Christ, and I went through a situation that I didn't know how to handle, and it got the worst of me.
Mm-hmm.
I am not an anomaly in that sense. Mm-hmm. But also, I want us to consider, as members of the body of Christ, and speaking to you, gentlemen, as elders, and maybe we could convey a message across the board that each person is not like the other when it comes to a chemical dependency dysfunction, because sometimes a person could be going through an immense amount of grief. It could be a loss of a family member, a spouse. Maybe they're fired from a job and they can't provide, and they have guilt, remorse, or whatever, and they begin to self-medicate. Maybe some people, to the worst, they commit suicide, right? So if we could see that this chemical dependency disorder, right? Now I'm specifically chemical dependency, not just substance abuse, but chemical dependency disorder can strike anyone for just about any reason, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the person is weak. It's that they are susceptible, and if they don't get someone like us to speak with them, like, hey man, how you doing? You okay? Go up and speak to the person. See how they're doing. Well, we love it when we see new people come, but what happens to the people that we don't see for a while? Is there an outreach for them? Maybe they're on their last legs, emotionally, physically, spiritually. We don't know.
Yeah,
and let's reach out to them.
That's a great point, Alan. I think that those people who visited us, what we did at our church recently is we created a directory of everybody in the group, and we handed it out physically to everyone at church, just so everyone's got phone numbers, addresses, things like that, to check up on each other, to give each other a call if we're not hearing from someone in a while. And again, we don't want to be pushy on people, but I think it's imperative upon us as Christians to also just say, hey, I just want to say hello and see how you're doing. You can do that every few months, and you're not being pushy, And sometimes something is going on with people, and they need that.
Well, if they're people you love and they know you love them, then where's the intrusion? You're just calling a family member, right?
Right.
But one thing I want us to keep in mind this before we're finished is I would like for us to better understand the difference between empathy and sympathy. So we can empathize with someone, and it may be difficult to understand where someone is coming from, but being sympathetic is just listening, sitting with them, hearing someone out, and where they do all the talking and we're not doing a lot of, yep, I know where you're at. Yep, I personally identify with that. That's more empathy. If we go with the sympathy, just, like a bartender, yep. And I'm not using that for anything else other than, like the role when a guy sits there and he's like a therapist while somebody's talking, right? That's the part I'm talking about.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's nothing wrong with alcohol, right? When somebody is depressed, I think of a verse. When someone's depressed, give them some wine. But know your limitations. You don't want to go from having a shot to drinking
12.
the vineyard. To drinking
Like,
the vineyard, right?
like the example of the guy you gave at the feast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's too much.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, be within your
Definitely.
means, you know. But
Yeah.
Right.
but I'm
Yeah.
grateful that you wanted to discuss this because it is
Yeah.
an important topic.
Yeah, I think
And
it's good to let people know. Like you said, you had that addiction. I just recently, because it was a prescription that I was given, got addicted to something. I
yeah,
mean, I thought that would never happen to me because I never thought that it was an addictive personality. But sometimes with the prescriptions we get, and again, and unfortunately, because for me, it's like they told me to take it once a day, and I call them up and say, "Is it okay if I take it twice a day?" They're like, "Yeah, they can, you can take it twice if you think you feel like you need it," and then that just made it worse, and I didn't realize that. I did not realize that this was now the kind of medicine, it was a benzodiazepine or
benzos.
something.
Yeah,
Benzo. It's a
those are
benzo.
horrible. Those are
Those
very
are
bad.
yeah.
And the half life. I don't know if you know the term half life, but
Oh yeah.
It likes to find its place in your bone marrow.
Mhm.
So if you would basically, that is the worst thing to kick. You must use supervision when kicking that. I had a client, it
Mhm.
took him almost a year to come off benzos.
Yeah.
A full year.
Yeah, because I guess it's a thing that they prescribed it for a certain reason. And again, I'm not going to be critical of who did it or for what reason they did it. But once I got it, I was like, oh, I feel really good. I slept really well. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is doing its job. Not knowing why it was doing that, and what it was, chemicals are rearranged up there. It's like, but then you don't use it anymore. And like, oh, now I'm all irritable, and but I take it again.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I feel good again. My mind, I'm myself again. But then that kicking, it was the hardest thing I ever had to do was because I tried myself, and it was when I called the counselor, and I talked to a counselor on the phone for an hour, say, here's my problems and this. They said, no, you can't do it on your own. You got to get some medical supervision on getting off of this type of medicine, and that's what I did, and it worked out. But again, if that could happen to me, I believe that could happen to anybody. Not to say
that's true.
Yeah,
That is so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think even at a basic level, just sugar itself, getting a little sugar high from time to time, everybody's experienced that.
Well, sugar is very addictive.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we didn't even get into food today, but just imagine that little bit of sugar that everybody could probably experience having. Oh yeah, that felt good. I mean, take that to the 100th level with some of these drugs, and you understand why it grabs some people so much.
Well, with Native Americans, the sugar addiction is the primary issue, and not alcohol, because alcohol is loaded with sugar.
Right?
And remember, I mentioned before, someone who is going through withdrawals of alcohol, give them that hard sugary candy, and the withdrawals will go away. Right. So when they're going through the delirium tremens, give them some sugar. It's not alcohol, but it will help because of the amount of sugar that's in there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It is very interesting.
Yeah. I myself, I gave up caffeine. Like it's been over a month. It was hard at first, just caffeine. A lot of people, they gotta have that coffee in the morning or sodas, but I like
caffeine.
Yeah, people like the caffeine, but I was like, I need it. I need to give it up for a specific reason, and I did, and now I'm okay. Now I'm like, I don't need it anymore. But it took a while to now, like I can wake up, I'm fine, I feel great. I don't need caffeine to get me, going. But once you start using stuff like that, and that's that's one of those mild drugs. It's probably,
Sure.
but it's the example of how drugs work.
Yeah.
And again, there's people out there watching. I bet they are that are watching that are probably addicted to something and they know it. Like, what can they do today? What advice would you give them, Alan, that they could do?
Yeah.
Today
What's the first step
to do?
Now this is if they're not aware that they're addicted, or they may be aware.
They're probably becoming aware that they're addicted. That they say, I'm addicted.
Okay.
I know I'm addicted, but I don't know what to do. What can I do?
Well, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the program. You have to do a form of inventory. You have to do a gut check. Somewhere within them, they need to be able to, like, maybe do the man in the mirror, so to speak, moment, or write a letter to themselves and being honest. And I mean, not just truthful, but for real honest with themselves. Or you just sit with another person. Nevertheless, you got to come to a place within you where you could either internally or verbalize, I got a problem, and nothing is going to solve the problem that I have without getting outside help. It's an outside job to clean the inside.
Hey, you know what that sounds like? Repentance.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've all done it. We've all done it if we're in the church. So hey, you can do it. You can do it, folks.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you also don't want to self-sabotage your repentance. Believe and know that He is your God, and remove those things to become clean, and then just start over.
Mm-hmm.
Every single day, we all know that we have a new opportunity when we open our eyes and realize that we made it through another day, that we have an opportunity to be better than who we were yesterday, which is the only person we ever need to be better than, is who we were yesterday. Just move forward.
I like that. Yeah.
And it is true. And people say, oh, it's easier said than done. Well, look, as I referred to people that I met that have obscene relapses. I'll pat myself on the back. I am proud for one thing, that I never had to re-experience what I went through, because I know it's waiting there for me anytime I decide to give up. And you have to give more to this than what you had. Realize that there's something wrong. Maybe I didn't have a problem. Maybe I was only just drinking alcohol because I didn't have a psychiatrist to sit with me or friends to help me go through this stuff. Whatever excuse I can make. I am safer believing that I am an alcoholic in remission than somebody on the streets with the problem, like behind a 7-Eleven, trying to find their next bottle. Contemplating whether they are or not. I would rather be clean and sober minded, spiritually sober, and be well in that manner, than to come up with excuses. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I don't have a drinking problem, which is going to give me reservations to want to maybe it's okay to start drinking a 12-pack a week, right? No, I don't need it. So one thing to keep in mind, with alcohol, chemically, right, not emotionally, but chemically, it could take years for the dependency. But like Jeff was saying, it takes days to become chemically dependent on that opiate, right? And then
the
you
benzo,
are hooked like a fish.
The benzo, what I found out about it is that if you take one and you take another one, it doesn't give you the same effect. In other words, you need more of it.
Always more.
They get the same
always
effect.
more.
Always more.
Yeah.
If
always
you don't
need
get
a
more
boost.
of it, if you don't get more of it, then you won't get the same effect it gave you the first time. That's a problem. So again, I don't want to be critical of what doctors do, the prescribe stuff, whatever. I just know if you're addicted to that, seek some help to get off of it.
And then another thing that goes with that as well, Jeff, is that when somebody gets to that elevated level, just to get that same feeling, okay, maybe I'm taking 5 grams. Okay, Now I need 10 grams. Some people get up to like 50, 80, 90 grams of whatever their opiate is, right? And just to be well, not to get high anymore. Now they're just, man, otherwise I'm in the red zone trying to come up to even. And this is why a lot of people go to methadone, because they don't have enough money to buy their street drugs, their opiates, like their heroin and their morphine. So they go to places like that.
And the scary thing today is they're mixing fentanyl into this, and that's so much stronger than all of that. That we've got 100,000 people died of drug overdoses in the last year. That's the highest it's ever been in this country, and that's part of the problem. Over half of them are be fentanyl related.
Now, there's one drug that people don't talk about. It. I don't know its chemical compound name, but its street name is Flakka. Have you guys ever heard of that? Well, while you're away after this, go on YouTube, look up people high on Flakka. They look extremely demon possessed. The things that these people do is wicked. I'm minimizing it a little bit, but wow, take a look. Flakka. Just do a search on Flakka, and it will blow your mind. I mean, what these people do to themselves to get high or whatever they're using it for, this is the next stage of horror. It's mind-boggling what people put themselves through.
Yeah, and other things, don't be ashamed to tell somebody. Right, I'm an elder in God's church, but I told people in my church, like, here's my problem. I'm dealing with this problem, and I'm going through it, and I need to, and then I'm getting this figured out. Don't be ashamed to talk to someone, because people
don't ever be ashamed.
People are your friends in the church, and being a part of the church is a good, strong part of overcoming anything. Is having that.
That's why we come together.
People are afraid of being ostracized, and maybe you go to somebody who says, "Hey, I know what you're going through. I know what's up. I've been there." Yeah, in my way, I know what you're saying. So that's you can self-identify. Just keep it. Like Mike, I had mentioned being empathic. That's just listening to somebody. It's not some new agey term that they may use it that way. But being an empath just means you can understand what people are going through. That's simply what it means. It's a psychological term, right? So I really appreciate you bringing up this topic.
Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, thanks for being part of this. I think hopefully anybody out there who needs help or whatever, you can email me. You can email Mike. I'm not a licensed counselor to do that, but I can definitely direct you.
Yeah, you want to put Alan's email up there, Jeff?
Definitely put me there, and I will speak with anyone on any given topic. Right. All I want to do is help people.
Yeah, so you can, and Alan can definitely help you as well. He's the counselor in this regard. He can give you the best advice about this. Right. So Alan Wolfkill@gmail.com. All right. Anything else you want to leave us with, Alan, before we go?
No, nothing other than that. Like, for you out there who's tuning into this, and you may think you possibly, maybe, sort of, kind of have an issue, don't let it go unchecked. Check yourself, or get with someone, refer to someone, be accountable. Find someone who you can speak with. They don't even have to be a friend necessarily, just someone you can talk with and get some feedback and get some opinions other than what's going on inside your own mind. It's always good to get some clarity, and maybe they can help you play the tape forward or backward, like Mike said. This is important stuff, and it is actually life or death. And as they say in AA, jails, institutions, or death. The only way out of this is to correct it, or you suffer the consequences from it. There's no other way about it. And we aren't the only ones hurting. We hurt each and every person around us. If this is a clear indicator that there is a problem. So don't be selfish. Get some help.
All right.
Get some help.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Alan. I think this is very, very interesting to talk about today. And hopefully we might need to talk about some more of this in the future, because this can definitely help.
This is just the tip of the iceberg on it.
Yeah. All right. So we'll see everybody next week. I don't know if we'll be back live yet, because we're doing some recorded ones.
We will be live with Skip the first Tuesday in January.
All right.
Oh, I think we might be taping with Skip. I'm sorry.
So again, but we'll be back live in the beginning of next year. So everyone out there, we'll see you next week.
Okay.
Love you guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Alan.
Bye bye now.